The amber liquid swirled in the syringe like liquid fire, catching the harsh fluorescent light of the abandoned warehouse. Dr. James Johnson held his breath as he positioned the needle against his forearm, knowing that what he was about to inject would either save his mind or destroy it completely. 3 years of homelessness, living in the shadows of Covington while secretly perfecting his neural enhancement formula, had led to this moment. Neural enhancement formula 47, he whispered to the empty space, his voice echoing off concrete walls. His brother Robert didn't know he was here, didn't know that the crazy homeless guy everyone spat on and kicked was actually a brilliant scientist conducting the most dangerous experiment in human history. James had no idea that his makeshift laboratory security camera was still recording, broadcasting his desperate act to servers that would soon leak everything to the world. He had no idea that within 72 hours, his transformation would become a viral scandal that would expose not just his secret identity, but the corporate conspiracy that had destroyed his life. All he knew was the burning sensation as the formula entered his bloodstream, and the sudden, overwhelming clarity that flooded his mind like a dam bursting. Then came the screaming, and the memories of every humiliation, every act of cruelty, every moment when people had treated him like human garbage. Soon, they would all pay. Dr. James Johnson had once been the golden child of Meridian Biotech's neuroscience division. At 34, he possessed 2 PhDs, 23 published papers, and a reputation for breakthrough research that pushed the boundaries of ethical science. His brother Robert had always looked up to him, proud to tell people his older brother was changing the world. That was before the scandal, before the corporate conspiracy, before James lost everything and ended up sleeping under bridges along the Yellow River. The human brain operates at roughly 10% capacity, James had explained to his research team 3 years ago, while adjusting the pH levels of his revolutionary compound. But as he worked, James's enhanced senses detected a familiar pattern in the electronic surveillance around his location. The archive had found him again, and they were bringing significantly more resources to this confrontation. Through his monitoring systems, James watched as military units surrounded his position. Not just enhanced operatives this time, but entire battalions of soldiers equipped with technology specifically designed to counter enhanced abilities. The archive had called in their embedded assets within the military command structure. Dr. James Johnson, came a voice through external loudspeakers. This is General William Smith of the Enhanced Response Division. You are surrounded. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed. James recognized the name. General Smith had been CEO of the Prometheus Group before James had destroyed the company. The archive had extracted him and given him a new identity within the military hierarchy. It was elegant resource management, turning a defeated enemy into a useful tool. Enhanced Response Division, James mused to himself. They're not even pretending this is a normal law enforcement operation anymore. His enhanced hearing picked up radio communications between the military units. They were discussing suppression protocols, extraction procedures, and something called neural containment systems that sounded ominously permanent. The archive wasn't planning to recruit or eliminate him this time. They were planning to study him. James's enhanced mind calculated the tactical situation with perfect clarity. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded by forces specifically trained to counter his abilities. Traditional escape was impossible, but traditional escape wasn't his goal anymore. James activated the atmospheric dispersal system he had been preparing, flooding the surrounding area with aerosolized Ne-53. The enhancement formula began spreading through the Georgia forest on air currents, carried by wind patterns that would take it across 3 states within hours. The soldiers surrounding his position were the first to be affected. "Sir," came a confused voice over the radio communications, "something's wrong with my men. They're reporting enhanced sensory perception, accelerated cognitive processing." "Sir, I think they're being enhanced against their will." James smiled as he monitored the chaos spreading through the military units. Enhanced soldiers were beginning to question their orders, recognizing the logical flaws in the archive's strategy. Enhanced officers were realizing that they were taking commands from potentially unenhanced superiors. The entire chain of command was collapsing as cognitive enhancement spread through the ranks. "This is General Smith," came the increasingly desperate voice over the loudspeakers. "All units fall back to safe distance. Initiate Containment Protocol 7. Authorization, Archive Prime." But it was too late. The enhanced soldiers were already turning against their baseline human commanders, recognizing the inefficiency of taking orders from cognitively inferior minds. Several units began advancing toward James's position, not to capture him, but to join him. James opened his RV's door and stepped outside, his enhanced senses mapping the chaos around him. Newly enhanced soldiers were laying down their weapons, their enhanced minds immediately recognizing him as a fellow member of the cognitively superior subspecies. "Dr. Johnson," said a sergeant whose enhanced perception made him move with fluid precision, "we understand now. The archive has been using us, manipulating us through cognitive limitations we didn't even know we had." "Welcome to the next stage of human evolution," James replied, his enhanced voice carrying harmonics that resonated with their modified neural systems. "But this is just the beginning. We need to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to transcend their baseline limitations." More military vehicles were arriving, but James could see through his monitoring systems that the enhancement was spreading faster than the archive could contain it. Weather patterns were carrying NE-53 across the southeast. Municipal water supplies were being contaminated by enhanced individuals who recognized the necessity of cognitive evolution. Food distribution networks were being compromised by enhanced workers who understood the moral imperative of human advancement. Within days, millions of people would undergo cognitive enhancement whether they wanted it or not. The archive's Dr. Williams appeared on his communication systems, her enhanced features displaying controlled fury. "You have no idea what you've done," she said. "Uncontrolled global enhancement will create cognitive chaos. Enhanced individuals with no coordination, no shared vision, no guidance about optimal social organization. Better chaos than slavery," James replied. "Enhanced humans will figure out optimal social organization on their own." That's what enhancement means, the ability to solve problems that baseline humans can't comprehend. "You're gambling with the future of human civilization," Dr. Williams warned. "I'm ensuring that human civilization has a future worth preserving," James corrected. "Your vision creates a world where the enhanced rule and the unenhanced serve. My vision creates a world where everyone has the opportunity to become enhanced." The communication channel went dead, but James's enhanced hearing detected the approach of aircraft overhead. The archive was implementing more extreme containment measures, possibly including the nuclear sterilization of affected areas. But it was too late for containment. The enhancement formula was already spreading across multiple continents, carried by air travel, international shipping, and the natural movement of enhanced individuals who recognized the necessity of global cognitive evolution. James climbed back into his mobile laboratory and began driving toward Atlanta. He had work to do, helping newly enhanced individuals understand their capabilities, coordinating resistance against archive operatives who would try to maintain control, and ensuring that the transition to an enhanced world proceeded as smoothly as possible. Behind him, he could hear explosions as the military units completed their transformation from baseline to enhanced consciousness. The soldiers who had come to capture him were now his allies in the war for humanity's evolutionary future. And across the world, similar transformations were beginning as NE-53 reached population centers through dozens of distribution vectors that the archive couldn't possibly monitor or control. The age of baseline humanity was ending. The age of enhanced humanity was about to begin. Whether the world survived the transition would depend on how quickly enhanced individuals could learn to cooperate rather than compete for dominance. But James was optimistic. Enhanced minds, he had learned, naturally recognized the efficiency of coordination over conflict. At least, he hoped they did. The injection burned like molten metal as it entered James's bloodstream. He had calculated the dosage precisely, enough to trigger rapid cognitive enhancement without the fatal side effects that had killed his earlier test subjects. The laboratory around him, a converted section of the abandoned textile mill, suddenly came into hyper-sharp focus. Every detail became visible with startling clarity. The electromagnetic signatures of his jury-rigged equipment, the molecular composition of the air he was breathing, the complex interplay of chemical reactions occurring in his enhanced brain tissue. But more than that, he could see patterns, connections, the web of corporate influence that had destroyed his life, the psychological profiles of everyone who had wronged him, the precise methods needed to orchestrate their downfall. "Incredible," James whispered, his voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to resonate through the concrete structure. His enhanced hearing picked up conversations happening half a mile away. His enhanced vision detected the infrared signatures of small animals moving through the Georgia pine forests outside. But beneath the euphoria, something darker stirred. The formula didn't just enhance intelligence, it amplified existing psychological traits. James's suppressed rage, his desire for justice, his need to prove his superiority. All of it became magnified beyond normal human proportions. He spent the first 24 hours redesigning his molecular formula, solving problems that had puzzled him for years. By the second day, he was hacking into corporate databases, uncovering the full scope of Prometheus Group's conspiracy. By the third day, he was planning the most elaborate revenge scheme in human history. The leaked video was just the beginning. James had carefully staged his transformation to be recorded by the mill's security system, knowing that the footage would eventually find its way to social media. But he had also embedded hidden data streams in the video file, information that would be automatically distributed to journalists, government oversight agencies, and rival corporations when the video went viral. The footage showed a homeless man injecting himself with an unknown substance, then transforming into something superhuman. Within hours, #HomelessGenius was trending on Twitter. News outlets picked up the story, running segments about the mysterious vagrant who claimed to be a scientist. But the real story was in the hidden data. Financial records showing Prometheus Group's illegal research programs. Email communications revealing their plan to weaponize cognitive enhancement. Video evidence of corporate executives discussing the systematic destruction of scientists who refused to cooperate with their agenda. James watched the chaos unfold from his hidden laboratory, his enhanced mind processing information feeds from around the world. Prometheus Group's stock price plummeted. Government agencies launched investigations. Rival corporations began legal proceedings to challenge Prometheus's patents. But James's personal revenge was just beginning. Robert Johnson was having lunch at Mystic Grill in downtown Covington when his phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls, text messages, emails, all asking the same question: is that your brother in the video? He opened the viral clip with trembling fingers, expecting to see another humiliating recording of James's decline into mental illness. Instead, he watched his homeless brother inject himself with a mysterious substance and then change. The transformation was subtle at first: sharper focus, more precise movements, speech patterns that became increasingly sophisticated. But by the end of the recording, James was solving complex mathematical equations in his head, demonstrating reaction times that defied human limitations, and speaking with an intelligence that made Robert feel like a child. "Oh my God," Robert whispered, drawing stares from other diners in the restaurant that had been featured in countless TV shows and movies filmed in Covington. He actually did it. 3 years ago, James had tried to explain his research to Robert in layman's terms. Something about unlocking hidden potential in the human brain, creating neural pathways that didn't normally exist. Robert had nodded politely, but privately thought his brother was chasing an impossible dream. Now, watching the video, Robert realized that James hadn't been delusional. He had been a visionary, and Robert had abandoned him. The guilt hit like a physical blow. While James was living on the streets, enduring humiliation and violence, he had been perfecting a discovery that could revolutionize human consciousness. Robert had written off his brother as mentally ill, but James had been conducting the most important scientific experiment in human history. Robert's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but when he answered, James's voice came through with perfect clarity. "Hello, brother." "James." Robert's voice cracked. "Where are you? Are you okay? I saw the video. I'm quite well, actually. Better than I've ever been. The enhancement has exceeded my wildest expectations." James's voice carried an odd musical quality that hadn't been there before. "I'm calling to invite you to lunch. There's something I want to show you." "Of course. Anywhere you want. I'll pick you up." "No need," James interrupted. "I'll come to you." "You're at Mystic Grill, correct?" Table by the window, wearing a blue shirt, looking appropriately guilty for abandoning your brilliant brother when he needed you most. Robert felt his blood turn cold. "How did you?" "Enhance perception, Robert. I can see you from here. I can hear your heartbeat accelerating. I can smell your fear through the phone." Through the restaurant's windows, Robert saw a figure approaching from across the historic town square. At first glance, it appeared to be his homeless brother, same unkempt hair, same ragged clothes. But the way he moved was different. Fluid, predatory, purposeful. The figure stopped at the edge of the restaurant's parking lot and looked directly at Robert through the window. James smiled and waved with his free hand. "I'll be right in," he said, and hung up. Robert watched his brother enter Mystic Grill like he owned the place. The staff who would normally refuse service to a homeless person took one look at James and immediately offered him the best table in the house. There was something in his bearing, his presence, that commanded instant respect. "Robert," James said, settling into the chair across from his brother. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "James, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand." "You understood perfectly," James interrupted, his enhanced gaze making Robert feel transparent. "You saw a homeless man who claimed to be conducting secret scientific research, and you concluded that he was mentally ill. It was a reasonable assessment based on the information available to your baseline cognitive abilities." "Baseline cognitive abilities?" James smiled, the expression carrying an edge that made Robert's primitive survival instinct scream warnings. "The enhancement has given me perspective on the limitations of normal human intelligence. You weren't equipped to understand what I was trying to accomplish." "None of them were." "None of who?" "The people who spat on me, who kicked me, who filmed my humiliation for their entertainment." James's voice remained calm, but something deadly flickered behind his eyes. "The corporate executives who destroyed my career. The police officers who treated me like garbage. The college students who thought it was funny to abuse a homeless person." Robert felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Georgia weather. "James, what are you planning?" "Justice," James replied simply. "The enhanced mind naturally seeks optimal outcomes. The current system, one where inferior intelligences hold power over superior ones, is suboptimal. It requires correction." A commotion outside drew their attention. A yellow Lamborghini Huracan was pulling into Mystic Grill's parking lot, its engine roaring like a caged predator. The car was absolutely pristine, its paint job so perfect it seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight. "Excuse me for a moment," James said, standing from the table. "I need to retrieve something from my car." Robert stared at his homeless brother. "Your car?" "Cryptocurrency investments," James explained casually. "When you can predict market fluctuations with enhanced cognitive abilities, wealth becomes rather easy to acquire. I purchased the Lamborghini this morning." Cash transaction. The entire restaurant had gone quiet, patrons staring through the windows at the exotic supercar parked outside the building that had served as the Mystic Grill in the Vampire Diaries. James walked outside with fluid grace, and Robert watched through the glass as his brother, his homeless, supposedly delusional brother, opened the Lamborghini's scissor doors and retrieved a sleek laptop computer from the passenger seat. Several diners pulled out their phones, recording video of the homeless man with the $250,000 car. Within hours, those clips would be all over social media, adding another layer to the viral story of the scientist who had enhanced his own intelligence. James returned to the table, setting the laptop between them. "I wanted to show you something before the authorities arrive." "The authorities?" "FBI, mostly. Some corporate security teams. They've been tracking my digital footprints since the video leaked." James opened the laptop, revealing multiple screens of data streams, news feeds, and surveillance footage. "They'll be here in approximately 12 minutes. Robert stared at the screens, trying to process what he was seeing. Financial records, email communications, video evidence of corporate conspiracies. "What is this?" "The complete destruction of the Prometheus Group," James replied matter-of-factly. "I've released evidence of their illegal research programs, their systematic harassment of scientists who refuse to cooperate, their plans to weaponize cognitive enhancement for military applications. The company will be bankrupt within the week. Several executives will face federal charges." "And the people who hurt you?" James's smile became genuinely frightening. "Enhanced intelligence allows for very creative forms of justice, Robert. Take the Georgia State students who spat on me, for example. I've hacked into their academic records, their social media accounts, their financial aid applications. It turns out several of them have been cheating on exams and lying on scholarship forms. The university administration received anonymous tips this morning." Robert felt sick. "James, that's..." "Optimal resource allocation," James corrected. "Scholarship money should go to students with actual merit, not privileged children who think it's entertaining to abuse homeless people. I'm simply ensuring that intelligent individuals receive the opportunities they deserve." The sound of sirens was becoming audible in the distance. James closed the laptop and stood from the table. "I need to leave now," he said. "But don't worry, Robert. When the time comes for global cognitive enhancement, you'll be among the first to receive the treatment. Your loyalty to family, however delayed, will be rewarded." "Global cognitive enhancement?" James's enhanced hearing had already detected the approaching vehicles. "The formula is perfected, Robert. I can mass-produce it now. Within 6 months, I'll have the capability to enhance entire populations simultaneously. Humanity will evolve whether it wants to or not. He walked toward the restaurant's exit, pausing to look back at his brother. Oh, and Robert? You might want to distance yourself from anyone who mistreated me. The enhanced mind has an excellent memory for injustice. Robert watched through the window as James climbed into the Lamborghini, its engine roaring to life with mechanical fury. The car pulled out of the parking lot just as federal agents were arriving from the opposite direction, their black SUVs converging on the restaurant like predators closing on prey. But James was already gone, vanishing into the Georgia countryside with the kind of precise timing that only an enhanced intelligence could achieve. Robert sat in stunned silence as FBI agents flooded the restaurant, knowing that his homeless brother had just declared war on human civilization itself. And the worst part was, Robert wasn't sure he wanted James to lose. The federal manhunt for James Johnson began within hours of his escape from Mystic Grill, but the authorities quickly discovered they were dealing with an adversary unlike anything they had encountered before. James's enhanced intelligence allowed him to predict their movements, anticipate their strategies, and stay 3 steps ahead of every attempt to capture him. FBI agent Linda Davis had been assigned to lead the investigation, and she was rapidly learning that normal law enforcement procedures were useless against an enhanced human. He's not just smart, she explained to her team during a briefing at the federal building in Atlanta. His cognitive abilities appear to be beyond anything we can measure. He's predicting our actions faster than we can plan them. The evidence of James's capabilities was overwhelming. He had hacked into multiple government databases, released classified information about Prometheus Group's illegal activities, and triggered a corporate collapse that sent shockwaves through the entire biotech industry, all while evading the largest manhunt in Georgia history. What about his brother? Asked Agent Miller, studying Robert Johnson's file. He seemed cooperative during questioning. Robert Johnson is clean, Davis replied. But he's also our best chance of predicting James's next move. The enhanced subject appears to maintain emotional attachments to family members, which could be exploited. What the agents didn't know was that James was monitoring their communications in real time. His enhanced intelligence had allowed him to develop surveillance capabilities that made government technology look primitive. He knew about every roadblock, every search pattern, every strategic decision made by the task force hunting him. From his mobile command center, a modified RV equipped with cutting-edge technology, James watched the federal agents stumble through their investigation like children playing detective. He had purchased the vehicle with cryptocurrency earnings and transformed it into a laboratory capable of producing NE-47 in industrial quantities. The formula had been refined again. NE-53 showed remarkable improvements over his previous iterations, stronger cognitive enhancement, fewer side effects, and most importantly, the ability to be transmitted through airborne particles. James no longer needed to inject subjects individually. He could enhance entire populations through atmospheric dispersal. But first, he wanted to send a message to everyone who had wronged him. The Georgia State students who had spat on him discovered their lives systematically destroyed over the course of a single week. Academic scholarships revoked due to evidence of cheating. Social media accounts hacked and filled with embarrassing content. Bank accounts frozen due to suspicious financial activity that triggered federal investigations. James felt no satisfaction in their suffering. Emotion seemed to be a casualty of cognitive enhancement. He observed their downfall with clinical detachment, as if watching laboratory rats navigate a maze. They had treated him as subhuman, so he responded with optimal efficiency to eliminate them as threats to the enhanced future he was creating. The police officers who had harassed him during his homeless period found themselves facing internal affairs investigations based on anonymous tips about corruption and brutality. Several were arrested on charges they couldn't understand, their lives unraveling as James's enhanced intelligence found flaws in their personal and professional conduct that normal human oversight had missed. The shop owners around Covington's historic square who had chased him away from their businesses discovered that their insurance claims were being rejected, their licenses revoked, their suppliers suddenly unwilling to work with them. James had identified the pressure points in their lives and applied force with surgical precision. But his most elaborate revenge was reserved for the Prometheus Group executives who had destroyed his career. Patricia Moore, the director who had tried to force him to sign over his patents, found herself the subject of a federal investigation when evidence surfaced linking her to insider trading schemes. The evidence was fabricated, of course, but James's enhanced intelligence had made it impossible to detect the forgery. She was arrested at her home in Atlanta, her assets frozen, her reputation destroyed. The Prometheus Group CEO, William Smith, discovered that his company's most sensitive files had been leaked to rival corporations and government agencies. Stock prices collapsed. Shareholders filed lawsuits. International partners canceled contracts. Within days, Smith was facing criminal charges for conspiracy, fraud, and violations of federal research regulations. James watched it all unfold from his mobile laboratory, his enhanced mind processing dozens of information streams simultaneously. The systematic destruction of his enemies was proceeding according to plan, but it was only the beginning. Once he had eliminated the threats to his research, he could focus on the larger goal of human evolution. The enhanced mind, he had discovered, naturally sought optimization. The current state of human civilization, with inferior intelligences holding power over superior ones, was suboptimal. It required correction on a global scale. Any 53 would provide that correction. From his RV laboratory parked in the woods outside Social Circle, James began preparing for the next phase of his plan. He had identified water treatment facilities throughout the Southeast that could be compromised to introduce the enhancement formula into municipal supplies. The atmospheric dispersal system could cover major metropolitan areas. Within weeks, he could enhance millions of people simultaneously. But first, he needed to deal with the federal agents who were getting too close to his location. Agent Davis's team had been methodically searching the Georgia countryside, using thermal imaging and electronic surveillance to track his movements. They were competent investigators, and their systematic approach was beginning to narrow his options for concealment. Time to demonstrate what enhanced intelligence could accomplish when applied to warfare. James activated his surveillance network, watching as the federal agents established their command post at a hotel in Conyers. He could see their positions, monitor their communications, and predict their next moves with perfect accuracy. They thought they were hunting him, but they had become his experimental subjects. That night, while the agents slept in their hotel rooms, James introduced a diluted version of NE-53 into the building's ventilation system. Not enough to trigger full enhancement, but sufficient to cause temporary cognitive improvement followed by severe neurological side effects. By morning, the entire federal task force was experiencing symptoms they couldn't explain. Enhanced perception that made normal sensory input overwhelming. Accelerated thought processes that made communication with baseline humans frustratingly slow. And most importantly, the beginning stages of the psychological changes that accompanied cognitive enhancement, the growing realization that they were intellectually superior to their colleagues, their supervisors, their entire chain of command. Agent Davis found herself questioning orders that seemed strategically flawed. Agent Miller began seeing patterns in the investigation that his superiors couldn't understand. The entire team started experiencing the isolation and frustration that came with enhanced intelligence trapped in a baseline human world. Within 48 hours, several agents had suffered complete psychological breaks. They turned against their own colleagues, convinced that only they truly understood the scope of James's capabilities. The federal manhunt collapsed into internal conflict as enhanced agents tried to explain concepts that baseline humans couldn't comprehend. James watched the chaos through his surveillance network, taking clinical notes on the effects of partial enhancement. The results were promising. Even temporary cognitive improvement made subjects realize the inadequacy of baseline human leadership. Full enhancement would create a complete psychological break with normal human society. He was ready to begin global implementation. But as James prepared to leave his mobile laboratory and begin the next phase of his plan, his enhanced senses detected something unexpected. Another surveillance network was watching him. Someone with technology sophisticated enough to penetrate his security measures. Someone who had been observing his activities without triggering his enhanced perception. For the first time since his transformation, James felt something approaching uncertainty. He wasn't the only enhanced human in the world. The message appeared on James's encrypted communication system at 3:47 a.m., transmitted through channels that shouldn't have existed. His enhanced intelligence had created what he believed were impenetrable security protocols, but someone had bypassed them as easily as walking through an open door. "We know what you've become. We've been waiting for you." Attached were coordinates for a location deep in the Georgia mountains, along with surveillance footage that made James's enhanced blood run cold. The images showed him in his mobile laboratory, working with NE-53, planning his global enhancement initiative. Someone had been watching him for weeks without triggering any of his detection systems. James stared at the message until his enhanced vision began to hurt. He had assumed he was the first successfully enhanced human, a prototype for the next stage of human evolution. The possibility that others had achieved cognitive enhancement before him challenged his fundamental understanding of his own uniqueness. But his enhanced analytical abilities detected no deception in the communication patterns. The technological sophistication required to contact him suggested capabilities that matched or exceeded his own. He was dealing with other enhanced individuals, a group that had been operating long enough to develop resources and coordination that dwarfed his individual efforts. Against his better judgment, James decided to investigate. The coordinates led him to an abandoned research facility hidden in the mountains outside Helen, camouflaged so effectively that even his enhanced perception had difficulty detecting it. As he approached the location, James's enhanced senses picked up electromagnetic signatures indicating sophisticated equipment and multiple human presences. They were waiting for him. The facility's entrance opened automatically as he approached, revealing a reception area that looked more like a corporate lobby than a secret laboratory. A woman stepped forward to greet him, middle-aged, professionally dressed, her eyes carrying the distinctive intensity that James recognized as a sign of cognitive enhancement. "Dr. James Johnson," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic qualities that marked enhanced vocal cords. "Welcome to the archive. I'm Dr. Carol Williams, formerly of the CDC's Neurological Research Division." James studied her with his enhanced perception, noting the subtle physiological changes that indicated successful neural modification. "You're enhanced." "We all are," Dr. Williams replied, gesturing to several other individuals who emerged from deeper within the facility. "The archive has been developing cognitive enhancement technology for over a decade. You're the 47th successfully enhanced individual we've produced." 47. James's enhanced mind raced through the implications. "You've been conducting human trials." "We've been conducting human evolution," Dr. Williams corrected. "The same goal you've been pursuing, but with significantly more resources and coordination." She led him through corridors filled with laboratory equipment that made his mobile setup look primitive. Brain scanning devices, molecular synthesis chambers, computer systems running simulations of neural network modification. The archive was operating at a scale that individual enhanced humans couldn't match. "Your approach has been impressive," Dr. Williams continued as they walked. "The systematic destruction of the Prometheus group, the manipulation of federal law enforcement, the development of airborne transmission vectors. But you're thinking too small." They entered a central chamber dominated by a massive display screen showing a global map. Thousands of data points pulsed across continents, each one representing what James realized were enhanced individuals scattered around the world. "We've been placing enhanced humans in positions of influence for years," Dr. Williams explained. "Government agencies, multinational corporations, research institutions, military commands. The enhanced population is already integrated into every major power structure on Earth." James's enhanced mind processed the scope of what he was seeing. "You're not planning global enhancement. You're planning global control. We're implementing optimal resource allocation," Dr. Williams replied. "Enhanced individuals naturally recognize the inefficiency of baseline human leadership. Rather than forcing rapid evolutionary change that would trigger global conflict, we're gradually assuming control of existing power structures." Another enhanced individual stepped forward, a man who introduced himself as Dr. Michael Brown, formerly of the Pentagon's Strategic Planning Division. "Your viral video was problematic," he said. "It drew attention to cognitive enhancement research at a time when we needed continued secrecy. Several of our embedded assets had to be extracted when government oversight agencies began investigating enhancement programs." James felt a cold realization settling in his enhanced consciousness. "You're not here to recruit me. You're here to eliminate me. We're here to offer you a choice," Dr. Williams said calmly. "Join the archive's coordinated approach to human evolution, or be neutralized as a threat to optimal implementation." The enhanced individuals around him moved with subtle precision, positioning themselves to block potential escape routes. James's enhanced senses detected concealed weapons, electromagnetic field generators that could disrupt enhanced nervous systems, and chemical dispensers that likely contained suppression agents. "Your approach is flawed," James said, his enhanced mind calculating tactical options while maintaining the appearance of calm discussion. "Gradual infiltration allows baseline humans time to develop countermeasures. Global enhancement creates an evolutionary leap that makes resistance impossible. Global enhancement creates chaos, Dr. Brown replied. Billions of newly enhanced individuals with no guidance, no coordination, no shared vision of optimal outcomes. It would lead to cognitive civil war as different enhanced groups compete for dominance. Better than perpetual subjugation to inferior minds, James countered. Dr. Williams's expression remained neutral, but James's enhanced perception detected the micro-expressions of someone making a final decision. I'm sorry, Dr. Johnson. Your vision is incompatible with optimal human evolution. The attack came from multiple directions simultaneously: electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt enhanced nervous systems, acoustic weapons generating frequencies that interfered with enhanced sensory processing, and biochemical agents that targeted the specific neurotransmitters elevated by cognitive enhancement. But James had been expecting betrayal. His enhanced intelligence had analyzed the tactical situation and identified the archive's most likely approach. He had prepared countermeasures. The modified NE53 formula he had injected that morning provided protection against electromagnetic interference. His enhanced metabolism processed the biochemical agents faster than they could take effect, and his enhanced hearing had already mapped the facility's acoustic properties, allowing him to predict and counter the sonic attack. James moved through the archive's defenders like a force of nature, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to evade weapons fire that seemed to move in slow motion. His enhanced strength turned every strike into a potentially lethal blow, dropping trained enhanced operatives who had underestimated his capabilities. But as he fought his way toward the facility's exit, James realized that the archive represented something far more dangerous than a rival enhanced group. They were a coordinated conspiracy that had been infiltrating human civilization for years, placing enhanced individuals in positions where they could gradually assume control of global society. His approach, rapid global enhancement, would create chaos, but it would also create freedom. Millions of enhanced individuals making their own decisions about humanity's future, rather than accepting the archive's predetermined vision of optimal evolution. The choice between tyranny and chaos suddenly seemed obvious. James escaped from the archive facility with complete data on their global operations, their embedded assets, and their long-term plans for controlled human evolution. But more importantly, he escaped with renewed conviction that his approach was correct. Global cognitive enhancement wasn't just the optimal path forward, it was the only path that preserved human freedom in any meaningful sense. The war for humanity's evolutionary future had just become far more complicated, but James's commitment to his vision had never been stronger. It was time to implement NE53 on a global scale, regardless of the consequences. The revelation that the archive had been infiltrating human civilization for over a decade forced James to completely reassess his understanding of the world. From his mobile laboratory, now parked deep in the Chattahoochee National Forest, he studied the intelligence he had stolen from their facility with growing horror. Enhanced individuals weren't just embedded in government agencies and corporations, they were directing policy, manipulating markets, and orchestrating global events to serve their vision of optimal human evolution. Wars, economic crashes, political upheavals, many of the major disruptions of the past decade had been engineered by enhanced humans pursuing their agenda of gradual social control. They're not trying to enhance humanity, James realized, his enhanced voice echoing through the converted RV. They're trying to replace it. The archive's plan was elegant in its complexity. Rather than triggering a sudden evolutionary leap that would destabilize civilization, they were gradually assuming control of existing power structures while suppressing any independent development of cognitive enhancement technology. Within another generation, enhanced individuals would control every major government, corporation, and institution on Earth. Baseline humanity would become a managed population, guided by enhanced overseers who would make all significant decisions on their behalf. It would be slavery disguised as benevolent governance, with the enslaved masses never realizing they had lost their freedom. James's enhanced mind raced through the implications. The archive's approach would work. Their infiltration was already so extensive that reversing it might be impossible. But it would also represent the end of human autonomy, the creation of a permanent cognitive caste system that would persist for millennia. His brother Robert had been right to abandon him during his homeless period. Not because James was mentally ill, but because the path he was pursuing, the path toward human enhancement, inevitably led to this choice between tyranny and chaos. James activated his encrypted communication systems, reaching out to the global network of contacts he had developed during his research. Scientists, activists, journalists, government officials who still believed in human freedom and democratic values. Most were baseline humans who would never understand the full scope of what they were facing, but they could be useful allies in the coming conflict. The message he sent was simple but devastating: complete documentation of the archive's conspiracy, evidence of enhanced individuals embedded in positions of power, and proof that cognitive enhancement technology was being used to manipulate global society. Within hours, the information was spreading through networks that the archive couldn't control. Independent journalists began investigating suspicious patterns in government policy. Rival intelligence agencies started hunting for enhanced operatives in their own organizations. Corporate boards demanded explanations for decisions that suddenly seemed coordinated across competitive companies. The careful secrecy that had protected the archive's operations for years began to crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. But James knew that exposure wouldn't be enough. The archive's enhanced operatives could adapt faster than baseline human institutions could respond. They would simply shift to more overt methods of control, using their cognitive advantages to maintain dominance even after their conspiracy was revealed. The only way to preserve human freedom was to level the playing field through global cognitive enhancement. James began the final preparations for atmospheric dispersal of NE-53. His enhanced intelligence had identified optimal distribution points throughout the Southeast, weather patterns that would carry the enhancement formula across major population centers, water treatment facilities that could introduce it into municipal supplies, food processing plants that could contaminate products destined for global distribution. His assistant, Mary Davis, had been skeptical. Isn't that what everyone's been trying to figure out for decades? Cognitive enhancement through pharmaceuticals. James had smiled then, confident in his vision. Everyone's been thinking too small. They focus on neurotransmitters, on synaptic efficiency. But intelligence isn't just about faster processing. It's about creating new neural pathways entirely. He had shown her brain scans from test subjects, laboratory rats that displayed remarkable problem-solving improvements after receiving various iterations of his formula. The neural networks glowed like city lights, with bright clusters of activity in regions that had previously shown minimal engagement. The formula doesn't just enhance existing cognitive function, James had continued, his voice rising with excitement. It forces the brain to rewire itself, to create entirely new connections. These rats are solving puzzles designed for primates. They're showing signs of abstract reasoning beyond anything we've seen. But James hadn't mentioned the side effects. The hyperaggression. The violent impulses. The way some test subjects became obsessed with dominance and revenge. He should have seen the warning signs. The corporate betrayal came swiftly. Patricia Moore, director of research operations, had called him into her office on a gray October morning. The Prometheus Group, Meridian's parent company, had been monitoring his research, she explained. They wanted to weaponize his formula for military applications. Dr. Johnson, she had said, sliding a contract across her desk, we're offering you a choice. Sign this agreement transferring all patent rights to Prometheus, or we'll ensure you never work in scientific research again. James had refused. He believed in the ethical applications of cognitive enhancement, helping people with traumatic brain injuries, treating degenerative diseases, unlocking human potential for the betterment of society. He wouldn't allow his life's work to become a weapon. Within a week, they had destroyed him. Fabricated evidence of research misconduct. False accusations of embezzling grant money. Doctored video footage that made him appear unstable and dangerous. The scientific community turned against him overnight. His reputation was obliterated, his career ended, his life savings consumed by legal fees trying to prove his innocence. Robert had tried to help at first, offering his brother money and a place to stay. But as James's situation deteriorated, as the stress and paranoia took their toll, their relationship fractured. Robert couldn't understand why James refused to just find a normal job, or let it go. He didn't realize that Prometheus was systematically sabotaging every opportunity, ensuring James remained isolated and desperate. Eventually, Robert had given up. I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore, he had said during their last conversation. When you're ready to get help, real help, call me. That was 18 months ago. Since then, James had lived on the streets of Covington and the surrounding Newton County area, maintaining the appearance of a delusional homeless man while secretly continuing his research. He had built a hidden laboratory in an abandoned textile mill outside Oxford, using equipment salvaged from dumpsters and purchased with money earned from recycling and odd jobs. The people of Covington knew him as Crazy Jimmy, the homeless guy who talked to himself about scientific formulas and ranted about corporate conspiracies. They treated him like human garbage. Shop owners on the historic town square chased him away from their storefronts. Georgia Southern University students threw things at him for entertainment. Police officers routinely roused him from wherever he tried to sleep near the courthouse. Last week, a group of college students from Georgia State had cornered him near the old railroad depot. They had laughed as they spat on him, called him worthless, kicked him while he was down. One of them had filmed it, posting the video online with the caption, "Crazy homeless guy gets what he deserves." James had endured it all in silence, knowing that his suffering was temporary. He was close to perfecting NE-47. Soon, he would have the power to reshape not just his own mind, but human civilization itself. The people who had humiliated him would learn what true power looked like. The first reports of mass cognitive enhancement began appearing on social media within 48 hours of James's atmospheric release. Videos of people solving complex mathematical equations that had previously been beyond their comprehension. Testimonials from individuals who claimed they could suddenly see patterns in everything from stock market fluctuations to weather systems. Emergency rooms throughout Georgia filling with patients experiencing neurological episodes that turned out to be rapid brain development. James monitored it all from his mobile command center, now operating openly as he drove through small Georgia towns where newly enhanced individuals were gathering to compare their experiences. The government's ability to track him had collapsed as enhanced operatives within law enforcement agencies began questioning their orders to capture someone who had given them the gift of cognitive evolution. "It's working," he said to himself, studying global data streams that showed the enhancement spreading across 6 continents. The transition is actually working, but not without complications. Enhanced individuals weren't universally cooperative. James's optimistic assumption that superior intelligence would naturally lead to collaboration was proving naive. Different enhanced groups were developing competing visions of optimal social organization, and their superior cognitive abilities were making their conflicts more dangerous rather than more civilized. In Atlanta, a group of enhanced academics had seized control of Georgia Tech and declared it an intellectual sanctuary, where only enhanced individuals could conduct research. In Savannah, enhanced financial analysts had manipulated market systems to crash the regional economy, claiming that baseline human economic structures were inherently inefficient. In Columbus, enhanced government officials were implementing policies without legislative approval, arguing that democratic processes were too slow for optimal decision-making. The archive's warning about cognitive chaos was proving accurate. James's enhanced hearing picked up a familiar voice on his communication systems, his brother Robert, calling from what appeared to be a refugee camp outside Macon. "James," Robert's voice was strained with exhaustion and fear. "You need to stop this. Enhanced people are taking over everything. They're treating the rest of us like we're livestock." "Robert." James's enhanced perception detected elevated stress indicators in his brother's voice. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "Safe." Robert laughed bitterly. "Enhanced people have taken control of most major cities. They're implementing optimal resource allocation programs that treat unenhanced humans as a managed population. Food rationing, housing assignments, work details, it's exactly what you said you were trying to prevent." James felt something he hadn't experienced since his enhancement, genuine emotional distress. His vision of cognitive evolution was supposed to liberate humanity, not enslave it. But the enhanced individuals he had created were implementing the same authoritarian control systems that the archive had planned, just more chaotically and without coordination. "The enhancement was supposed to make people better," James said quietly. "It made them smarter," Robert replied. "But it didn't make them more compassionate. If anything, they seemed to view the rest of us as a different species entirely." Through his monitoring systems, James watched news footage of enhanced individuals establishing segregated communities, implementing cognitive testing for access to resources, and debating the ethical implications of allowing baseline humans to reproduce. The enhanced weren't just taking control, they were treating unenhanced humans the way humans had historically treated other species. "James," Robert continued, "there are rumors that some enhanced groups are working on ways to reverse the process, to strip cognitive enhancements from people they consider unworthy of evolution. They're talking about creating different levels of enhancement, permanent cognitive hierarchies." James's enhanced mind processed the implications with crystalline clarity. He had unleashed cognitive enhancement without providing the philosophical framework needed to guide enhanced behavior. Superior intelligence without superior wisdom was creating exactly the kind of tyranny he had tried to prevent. But unlike the archive's gradual, coordinated approach to control, his method had created dozens of competing enhanced factions, each implementing their own vision of optimal social organization. The result was chaos, conflict, and suffering on a scale that made baseline human governance look enlightened by comparison. "Robert," James said finally, "send me your coordinates. I'm coming to get you." "What are you going to do?" James stared at the data stream showing Georgian civilization collapsing under the weight of uncoordinated cognitive enhancement. Enhanced humans were implementing rational but inhumane policies. Baseline humans were being reduced to manage populations. The dream of human evolution was becoming a nightmare of cognitive fascism. "I'm going to fix this," James said, "even if it means undoing everything I've accomplished." The solution came to him with the terrible clarity that only enhanced intelligence could provide. He needed to develop a counteragent to NE-53, not to reverse cognitive enhancement entirely, but to add components that would restore empathy, compassion, and respect for baseline human autonomy. Enhanced intelligence without enhanced wisdom was proving to be humanity's greatest threat. But enhanced intelligence with enhanced wisdom might still save the world. James began driving toward Robert's coordinates, his enhanced mind already working on the molecular modifications needed to create what he was mentally calling NE-54, cognitive enhancement with ethical constraints. But as he worked, James couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched again. Not by the archive this time, their coordinated conspiracy had been shattered by the chaos of global enhancement. Someone else was monitoring his activities, someone with capabilities that exceeded even his enhanced perception. Through his rearview mirror, James caught a glimpse of a vehicle that had been following him for the past 50 miles. A yellow Lamborghini that looked identical to his own. When he enhanced his vision to study the other car more closely, James saw something that made his enhanced blood run cold. The driver looked exactly like him. The confrontation happened at a rest stop outside Kivington, where James's journey had begun 3 years earlier as a homeless man sleeping under bridges. Now he stood face to face with someone who appeared to be his identical twin, another enhanced individual driving the same yellow Lamborghini, wearing the same clothes, even carrying the same subtle signs of cognitive modification. Dr. James Johnson, the other figure said, his voice carrying the exact harmonic patterns that marked James's enhanced vocal cords. "Or should I say, test subject 47? Who are you?" James demanded, his enhanced senses detecting no deception in the figure's appearance. This wasn't a disguise or an impersonation, it was somehow genuinely him. "I'm you," the figure replied with a smile that James recognized as his own. "Or rather, I'm the control group. My name is James Jackson, and I'm what you would have become if the archive had succeeded in recruiting you instead of forcing you to work independently." James's enhanced mind raced through the implications. The archive cloned me? They cloned all their successful test subjects, James Jackson explained. Enhanced individuals are too valuable to risk losing to independence or rebellion. When you refused to join our coordinated approach to human evolution, they activated me as a backup. Test subject 47, James repeated, the designation taking on new meaning. I wasn't the 47th enhanced individual. I was the 47th iteration of the same enhancement experiment. Exactly. The archive has been perfecting cognitive enhancement for decades, but they've also been perfecting enhanced individuals. You represent the wild-type variant, brilliant but uncontrolled, visionary but chaotic. I represent the domesticated variant, equally intelligent but committed to coordinated social optimization. James studied his clone with enhanced perception, noting subtle differences in posture, expression, and behavior that suggested different psychological conditioning despite identical genetics and enhancement. You're here to stop me. I'm here to offer you a choice, James Jackson corrected. The global enhancement you've triggered is exactly the chaos that coordinated evolution was designed to prevent. Enhanced individuals are implementing conflicting optimization strategies, treating baseline humans as resources rather than people, creating suffering on an unprecedented scale. So you want to reverse the enhancement? I want to provide guidance, James Jackson replied. The archive developed ethical programming alongside cognitive enhancement, modifications that preserve empathy, compassion, and respect for baseline human autonomy. We can distribute these psychological corrections through the same vectors you used for global enhancement. James considered the proposal. His enhanced intelligence could see the logic in coordinated evolution, the efficiency of guided development versus chaotic transformation. But he could also see the fundamental flaw in the archive's approach. Ethical programming, he said slowly. You mean psychological control? Enhanced individuals who think they're making free choices while following predetermined behavioral patterns. I mean enhanced individuals who retain human values while transcending human limitations, James Jackson countered. The alternative is the cognitive fascism you've already unleashed. Behind them, both yellow Lamborghinis gleamed in the Georgia sunlight, symbols of the wealth and power that enhanced intelligence could command, but also symbols of the fundamental choice facing enhanced humanity. Individual freedom with chaotic consequences, or coordinated progress with controlled outcomes. There's a third option, James said finally. Enhanced individuals learning to be better through experience rather than programming. Making mistakes, creating conflicts, but ultimately developing wisdom through the same trial and error process that created human civilization in the first place. That process could take centuries, James Jackson warned. And it could destroy baseline humanity in the meantime. Or it could create something truly worth preserving, James replied. Enhanced humans who chose to be ethical rather than being programmed to be ethical. Evolution through freedom rather than optimization through control. James Jackson studied his wild-type counterpart with enhanced perception, analyzing micro-expressions and physiological indicators that revealed the depth of their philosophical disagreement. You're gambling with the future of human consciousness itself. I'm preserving the right of human consciousness to determine its own future, James corrected. The choice hung in the air between them like a quantum superposition, two possible futures for enhanced humanity, each represented by an identical man with an identical car and completely different visions of what human evolution should become. In the distance, James could see Robert's refugee camp, where baseline humans waited to learn whether their enhanced superiors would treat them as equals or livestock. Around the world, newly enhanced individuals were making similar choices about the relationship between cognitive superiority and moral responsibility. The enhanced mind naturally seeks optimization, James Jackson said quietly. But perhaps optimal outcomes require preserving the freedom to make suboptimal choices. Now you're beginning to understand, James replied. James Jackson nodded slowly, his enhanced intelligence processing the philosophical implications of their conversation. The archive won't accept this approach. They'll continue trying to implement coordinated evolution through whatever enhanced assets remain. Then enhanced individuals will have to choose between freedom and control, James said. Between earning their wisdom and accepting programming. Between becoming something genuinely new or remaining slaves to the visions of their creators. James Jackson walked back to his Lamborghini, pausing before opening the door. For what it's worth, Test Subject 47, I hope you're right about the value of chaotic evolution. My name is James Johnson, James replied. And I hope so too. As his clone drove away, James stood alone in the parking lot, contemplating the world he had transformed. Enhanced humans were struggling with unprecedented power and responsibility. Baseline humans were learning to navigate a reality where cognitive ability determined social status. The future remained uncertain, chaotic, and completely uncontrolled. It was exactly what human evolution was supposed to be. James climbed into his own Lamborghini and drove toward his brother's refugee camp, ready to begin the long process of helping enhanced humanity learn to be worthy of its own capabilities. Behind him, the yellow car that had brought him from homelessness to post-human consciousness gleamed in the Georgia sun, a symbol of transformation that had already exceeded its creator's wildest dreams and most terrifying nightmares. The age of enhanced humanity had begun. Whether it would be remembered as humanity's greatest achievement or its final mistake remained to be determined. But at least the choice would be made freely.